And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Network, here in an undisclosed location, interviewing the man, the legend, the political force, Vermin Supreme.
Hello.
Vermin, thanks for joining us tonight. I know you were here at a campaign event in an undisclosed location in New England.
Well, I will disclose the event. If I will disclose the location, if that's okay.
Sure.
We're at the Green Dragon Tavern here in Boston, one of the birthplaces of the American Revolution, where some of the founding fathers hung out and plotted and planned such exciting things as the Boston Tea Party and other such civilly disobedient activities that helped gain American independence, which worked real well for a while.
Actually, it really did. For, we'd say, about 150, 60 years, it was actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, it had its drawbacks, let's be clear, of course, but all in all.
Now let's talk about, first of all, the platform we all know about so easily. What does Vermin Supreme stand for?
Well, once again, of course, I am a highly respected political satirist, if I may say so, and I'm generally known for presenting the 4 basic platform planks that include, but not limited to, mandatory toothbrushing laws, gingivitis has been eroding the gum line of this great nation for long enough, it must be stopped, zombie preparedness, and harnessing the awesome power of zombies for energy production, the original Green Deal. Time travel research, a giant boondoggle that America needs in order to help keep its tech sector going along. And, of course, I'm going to go back in time and kill baby Hitler. And last but not least, free ponies for all Americans. It is a federal pony identification system. And, friends, you may have heard about the free ponies in the news as a pejorative hurled at the various candidates over their various promises of free things. But I'd like to point out that, yes, I did enter that into the lexicon. I've been doing this for quite some time. And I have discovered that the simple device of wearing a rubber boot on one's head and promoting absolutely ridiculous, absurdist commentary on society and politics in general has allowed me to amplify my voice millions of times over and attract an amazingly wide and diverse fan base and audience that spans the political spectrum. International. It's amazing. It's humbling. And it's much bigger than this meat bag that you see before you.
Excellent, excellent. So you've chosen to run for the nomination under the Libertarian Party, if you will.
Yes, I have.
What led you to the Libertarian Party?
Well, in previous years, let's be clear, I mean, I did choose a party as a flag of convenience for the New Hampshire primary, as a Republican one year, as a Democrat for several years. I came in third, I came in fourth. I've been running for president for over 30 years, and ultimately I do come from a left anarchist perspective. But back in the 2016 campaign, such luminaries in the libertarian movement as Boomer Shannon, he reached out to me. He wanted to interface with me and sort of help me up to things that were going on. He brought me out to do a fundraiser out in L.A. I was out there anyway, but he's put this fundraiser on, and we raised a bunch of money for the Southern California Libertarian Party. That same year, Trent Soms, who was the head of the Libertarian Youth Caucus, reached out and invited me down to the International Students for Liberty Conference, where they brought me in to do this bit where I interrupted their president doing the introductory remarks, and it was high hilarity. I did the bullhorn bombastic version of the Jimi Hendrix version of the Star Spangled Banner in front of George Will and a whole bunch of other fine folks. And the amount of love that I received just really opened my eyes to how much support that I was had in the libertarian community. So I made it a point of going to the Libertarian Party convention in 2016. And, at that point, I think it was still a sort of a joke campaign. I was just saying it to make it so. But when I was there, I discovered that half the people there loved me being there so much and I was allowed to get away with anything that I wanted to do. I was given incredible leeway. I was doing stunts and pranks that would have got me thrown out of any other convention for sure, but the libertarians were able to swing and hang with it. Now, the other half of the people there did not like the fact that I was there, and they did not appreciate it. But the half that loved it, loved the fact that the other half did not like it very much. So right away, I discovered that I was a little bit of a wedge issue. And I had just such a wonderful time. And then in the intervening years, some libertarians reached out to me. Desiree Lindsay from the Audacious Caucus reached out and was interested if I was interested in actually running a real campaign. And I gave it some thought, and I said, sure, why not? And she has become my campaign manager, and I have been staffed. I have a campaign staffed by a lot of libertarians who have been working various campaigns over the years, and they are convinced that I am a pragmatic candidate. They are convinced that I am the only candidate in the field that might possibly bring in that magical 5% of the general election vote. And so at this point, I've apparently become, in the top 3 of the fundraisers of the announced libertarian candidates. I've pretty much topped almost every poll, or at least come in second or third. And I seem to have such immense reserves of political capital and political goodwill that I believe that there are very good arguments as to why I very well may be the best libertarian candidate that they could field. Now, I understand that there are concerns and there are arguments against. And of course, these are things that make it a real campaign. And I've been doing my best to address these issues. Number one that I find talking to people is that people are concerned that can a serious party put forward a joke candidate and not be considered a joke party? And I believe that the answer to that is yes, and it is purely in the framing. I see it as a document that the Libertarian Party media collective would put out there. It would say something to the effect of, we are the Libertarian Party. We are a party of ideals. We are a party of convictions. We are a party of action. And we do these things, etc., etc., etc. However, the duopoly election system of the presidency has, in fact, risen to the level of a joke. And therefore, with love and spite, we give you Vermin Supreme. Boom. I mean, it's that simple, and it would allow them to totally... hello, hi, how are you? Hi, where are you folks from? Cleveland, Ohio? The North Pole.
Yeah.
Once again, these are some people from Cleveland, Ohio.
Are we on video?
Yes, we are. And oh, that's okay.
No, we're not being recorded.
Well, no. Well, I'm Vermin Supreme, and I just want to thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
I'm from the internet, and Cleveland, Ohio. And you know me. Do you know me from Cleveland, or just from the internet?
Just met you.
Well, why
Okay.
is
It's a nice boot.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
a
yes.
nice boot.
Oh, thank you. I'm running for president of America.
Oh, I like it.
I'm Vermin Supreme.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So that's part of the campaign right there. I mean, just tonight we had like a dozen kids come up from Connecticut. We had yourself from Rhode Island. There was a couple from Florida who just knew me from the internet. There was another couple from the gentleman was from the UK and was familiar with me and my work. So it's just part of this. I've spent the last 30 years cultivating this fan base, cultivating this character, this imaginary world of make-believe political alternatives. And, I am willing to allow the Libertarian Party to harness this pony-driven monster for their own purposes. I'm putting an offer on the table. And the Libertarian Party will be given a very clear choice this election year. They will be given the choice of 2 time streams. One time stream will be the time stream with Vermin Supreme as their nominee, and the other one will be the time stream without. It's a very clear choice. And The way I figure it, there's 3.9 million high school kids in America that graduate every year. Give me 2 of those years. That is 8 million kids. Add that to 17 million college students. That's a pool of 25 million potential voters. Give me 1 out of 4 of those kids voting for me. That would equal, that's your 5% right there. Boom, just like that. It does not include the massive pool of disaffected, disillusioned, disgusted voters. It does not include the amazing umbrella of subcultures in America that fall under geek and nerd culture that are my total natural fan base. And I can't guarantee anything. I can't promise anything. But the people who are working on my campaign, they are convinced. And all I've been doing is trying to present the premise that it is not inconceivable that this can happen. And I've been largely successful in that exercise, and we'll see what happens.
Now let's stop, if you will, and move away from the character.
Okay. No, I'm not in character.
Oh, I
My character is much wackier.
Okay.
My character gives me a certain license and allowance to do a lot of things that I normally can't.
Well, and that's what I want to discuss.
Yes, sir.
I had the opportunity last year to see your movie, and it presented 2 distinct vermins, if you will.
If you will.
And the first vermin, of course, is the master of political satire,
Yes, sir.
being able to puncture any ego, including mine, I'm sure, at will.
And yes,
Can-
but that's the easy part.
You are evil. I was going to say you are ego puncture weaponized, if you will, without a doubt. But the other half is an individual who is passionately concerned about civil rights, about human rights.
Yes, sir.
And I've seen video of you in action both here in Boston recently, and for your movie. And talk to me about some of the issues that really concern you as the other vermins.
Well, I guess ultimately, a couple of the themes that are consistent through my career are free speech, the First Amendment, being able to speak our minds in public and petition the government for a redress of our grievances. A very important connective tissue throughout my work, from the satire and my street activities and trying to help facilitate free assembly. Free assembly, the right of the people to assemble in the public square, is super important to me, and I've taken place, participated in many political demonstrations in the streets, and have gone up in an oppositional way to riot police. One of the more important things I do happens in real time in the real world. When demonstrators meet up with riot police, and there is this space between the two, between the riot police and between the protesters and demonstrators, that is a vacuum. It's a no person's land, and anything could happen there. This vacuum could be filled by a protester doing something stupid. It could be filled by a cop doing something stupid. It could be filled by an agitator trying to work up the crowd, or anything could happen. But I have discovered that I can enter that space, and with my bullhorn and quick wit and calm voice, literally change reality. I mean, I can bring things down. I can get the crowd to, imagine the cops are naked. I'm able to, because once again, a lot of these riot cop world situations, one of the worst weapons that the police have is fear. I mean, they try and really make you very much afraid of what they might do, and they have a number of weapons and tactics at their disposal to back them up on that. So their threats are credible. But one of the things I also like to do in these situations is read excerpts from riot control manuals to the cops themselves, because I find the cops are generally uninformed. They're often bored, especially if they're in a line for any time. They might have to piss, they might have to scratch themselves. And then a lot of times they don't even know why they are there. They've been fed a bunch of lies. They are not properly trained. And so I will use them as an audience, and I will address them through my bullhorn and try and get them to understand what I expect of them as a citizen, of their behavior. And a lot of these things are common sense, allowing a crowd to disperse on its own, Not kettling a crowd because that creates problems, and also I will attempt to put out safety information to the crowd of demonstrators, because there's not a lot of people doing that, and the people need to know what kind of dispersal tactics and weapons might be used against them. They need to know how to safely, remove your contact lenses, people. Pepper spray is going to melt that shit onto your eyes. People need to know, walk, don't run when you're dispersing, because, you don't want people to get trampled. Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of your escape routes. I'll try and make them aware that they have an escape route, because sometimes it's not always clear. And these things can create crowd panic, and crowd panic is a very dangerous thing that can happen. It can, once the pepper spray starts flying and people can't see and people are running, it can get real chaotic. And so I do my best to, when you get down to it, it's sort of, amplified, glorified camp counselor stuff. But it's a sort of crisis intervention. It's a propaganda technique in a way. But it's also a crowd safety facilitation. And so I've taken that and developed a skill set that has allowed me to do that. And the fact that I do all the funny stuff on the internet has actually made me be able to do that more effectively on the street. Because, when I'm in the streets and the riot cops, they know who I am from the internet. And, in Chicago, 2012 NATO, I could see them literally, taking out their phones, and it would go down the crowd. But sometimes I like to play with the cops, too. Also at NATO, I think I was going up to every single last cop in this long, long line of cops and asking them, am I being detained? Am I free to go? And they did not know, because they just didn't know, because they don't have to know. They're following orders. And so I would say, excuse me, officer, am I free to go? And they would say, I don't know. And I would go to the next cop and say, am I free to go? And they would say, I don't know. And I did that over 100 times. Every, so often I would run into a sergeant who would say, yes, you are. But I was making this point that, they just didn't even know why the hell they were there. Sometimes I'll tell the cops that they need to use cornstarch to prevent chafing, because a cranky cop is a chafing cop, and that's a violent cop. So I try and, and it's gotten to a point where on a good day I can demand to see their commanding officer, and they will send them out to me, or he will send himself out to me, and I can find out what the fuck their objective is, and if I feel that it is in the interest of public safety, and I agree with that, I will share that information. I will also offer the disclaimer that I got it from the cops, and that's what they're trying to achieve. But oftentimes it's like, I'll find out that there is a way to exit, and I'll be able to spread that information to the crowd. So I've built up a lot of cred on the streets from that. I've been doing stuff.
Well, let me ask you a question. You and I are of a certain age where we've seen firsthand, generationally, peaceful civil disobedience have an outsized impact on public policy. You and I are old enough to remember the Vietnam War protests. You and I are old enough to remember what went on in trying to get folks in the gay rights movement to obtain the same kind of social liberties that other Americans enjoyed.
Indeed.
We've seen presidents fall, we've seen economies come and go. Have we lost track of the power of peaceful civil disobedience in this nation? Can it have a comeback?
Well, I think it continues. I think every few years there's a new movement that attracts a different set of young people that didn't know, that weren't politically active, that weren't aware. I look at the Occupy movement. I look at the Black Lives Matter movement. I look at the Extinction Rebellion coming up right now. All these movements. You might dismiss them as it's those same old lefties doing their lefty thing. But ultimately, it's a whole new group of young people that are coming together over these particular issues. I cut my teeth in the late 80s, early 90s on the anti-nuclear protests in the Nevada test site, and all these marches across America. And I'm still in touch and still working with these people who are still active 40 years later. And so it always does my heart good every time I see another issue that comes up that might just seem a flash in the pan, that might not seem to be have effective results. But the fact of the matter is, it's creating all sorts of ripples. And we do have success, and we do have. I mean, protest is one of the only things that has ever really made a difference and applied enough pressure. The anti-apartheid movement, the women's suffragette movement, just anything. The labor movement, the 8-hour work week, the anarchist movement made that happen. And the oppression of the state has pushed people to push back and to prove that people have the power. And of course, these are, much more scary times. I think a lot is the amplified information overload, but a lot is the militarization of the police forces, the surveillance that they're adding to the mix. I wrote the mandatory toothbrushing law many years ago, before the Patriot Act, for goodness sake. And so, I think a lot of us older folks feel like Cassandras in a sense, that we've been, screaming out and trying to warn people, Soylent Green, it's people. But the majority always sort of ignores it, because they're too trapped into the rat race, because they're just working too hard to make the ends meet and relaxing from the TV set, and how easy it for people. How can people take time off work to go and protest? How can they take the streets when they don't see it doing any good?
Well, it's interesting because you see what's been happening overseas, and there's a state where folks are fighting, literally putting their lives on the line.
Oh yeah,
to fight the Chinese government.
No, the yellow vests going on for almost a year now.
Yeah,
every weekend.
And yet Americans are more upset that their contract rights in the NBA might be denied. Have we ceased to appreciate as Americans? When you travel the country, you're on the ground floor of protest movements across this nation. Have Americans lost their appreciation for the advantages and the freedoms that we have? And are they willing to give them up that easily when other parts of the world literally are putting their lives on the line?
I certainly hope not. And like I said, I think a lot of, the pacifying effect of the general media and the internet and the massive information overload and let's face it, society, a little bit of fraying going on, a little bit of people withdrawing, people getting hit over the head, feeling that they can't make a difference, and they withdraw. They can't even pay attention to all the shit that's going on. They can't even process it. So I think there's a lot of that. People are just like overwhelmed with it. But I do believe that there are still a lot of people of good conscience. I believe that there are still large numbers in the streets. But maybe it's time. I don't know. How do we come about new tactics? How can we make things different? We've been sort of doing the same script. It's one of the things that allows me to go into these demonstrations, because I know the script. You know how it's going to go. It's going to go this way and that way, and escalate in this direction, and that allows me to head it off. So I think there is always people putting up resistance, and screw the Dems for taking on the word resist when that's the resistance. I don't think that's really, it's resist TM. It's a trademark. It's it's hard to say, but I like to think that I am offering an alternative or a different way of direct action, a different way of resisting the dominant paradigm. I am offering absurdism. I am offering the opportunity to laugh in the face of the establishment, to make fun of the duopoly, to without mercy, just fucking laugh at them. And I think that is an attractive thing to the young people. I think so many young people, I think that's what they get. They get that the whole system is corrupt, that it's rotten. Pretty much to the core, that anything the government does, it's going to be terrible or have terrible results. And I think we just have to make it known that it is such a fucking joke that we're just going to laugh it out of existence.
I mean, ridicule is a very powerful tool, isn't it?
I think it is. I mean, humor has allowed me to be 100 times more aggressive than I might be regularly. Humor has definitely, I believe it's brought down, it pops that balloon. It can bring down change. It can, the emperor has no clothes. It's a fact.
Now, one of our viewers, Mr. Eric Carlo, has asked about why you protested straight pride. Talk about the Straight Pride Day and what your feelings are on that.
Well, once again, I am a free speech advocate. I believe that people do have the right to assemble, freely assembly and exercise their free speech. I mean, at the first free speech rally, I was going to be a speaker at that point. Samson called me out at the second free speech rally to come and join them. And I understand that my fan base actually extends across that spectrum into that hard right place with people that I really disagree. And the Straight Pride rally, once again, I found it distasteful, but I believe that it was intentionally meant to be distasteful. I believe it was a troll job. I believe that anybody involved in it will have to admit that it was an absolute troll job. And just who were they trolling? They were trolling the LGBTQ community. They were trolling, trying to own the libs or whatever. I'm not saying that there was humor involved. I mean, obviously humor was their intent. It seemed to be, but it was weaponized humor. I know irony. I know satire. I don't think there was much ironic about it or satirical. I believe it was a parody. And of course, I was invited to participate at PorkFest. An individual who was involved invited me to participate, and I said to him, as I had said on Facebook, straight pride can suck my dick. And I offered the opportunity for that gentleman that I would march with straight pride if he sucked my dick. He declined. However, let me say this about that. Speech is good, and counter speech is fine, and heckling is certainly part of the dialogue. And so I went there to heckle, and I was very sad that so many of them were butthurt by it, by my clever satirical heckling of their clever parodic event. And yes, I was, and essentially for those who do not know, I spent about the entire parade march trying to rebrand the Straight Pride March as a douchebag Pride March. And so I spent the whole march shouting out, douchebag pride, douchebag pride, douchebag pride nationwide. I'm a douchebag, you're a douchebag, douchebag pride. And so let alone that it is simply a rebranding of resist Marxism and the very sketchy associations that they have with the Patriot Guard or Patriot Front or whichever one of those particular ethno-state nationalist organizations that was providing security for Milo. Come on, let's face it. The Straight Pride was a troll job, and it was sponsored and created by a bunch of very unsavory, sketchy individuals. As much as I might know you on the street and get along with you just fine. And I think I would tell you the same thing. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
That was a particularly difficult moment because, on one hand, you would hope that better instincts would come out and better, simply a use of that type of energy, that type of passion, that it's truly meant to fight for free speech, can find 1,000 outlets.
Yes, I mean, it was creative.
To a degree.
To a degree. They used their creative instincts and their humor to put together this very reactionary fucking thing.
But ultimately, what did it accomplish?
Spend a lot of money, got the government spending a lot of money, got their yayas out. And once again, getting your yayas out is, it's worthwhile.
Yeah, no,
having fun. I don't fault them for that. I just think it's it's a little interesting that they really snowflaked out and took my commentary so hard. I mean, I was hoping that like when Hillary Clinton called them despicables. They all said, "Yeah, we're despicables." So I was hoping they would work with the douchebag pride. Yeah, we're a bunch of douchebags. Fuck yeah. So there is that.
No, absolutely. Issues. And by the way, if you're just joining us, my name is Pat Ford. I am sitting with political, satirical, activist legend Vermin Supreme, having kind of face-to-face conversation that I've been hoping to have for a long time. It's not like that we live that far apart.
No.
I'm hoping.
Takes a lot to get me out of the woods.
I'm hoping that we can orchestrate an opportunity for you to come down to Rhode Island.
Absolutely.
Meet students in Rhode Island.
Absolutely.
Libertarians in Rhode Island. Meet everyone. Let's not narrow it down. Why don't you just have you meet everyone in Rhode Island?
It's a small state. We probably can.
We can make this happen.
I've got a 50-state strategy, and Rhode Island is one of them.
Excellent. First, let's talk about issues.
All right.
Issues.
Yes, sir.
Clearly, First Amendment is right up your alley. How are you on the power of the state? Areas like education, foreign policy, war. Where do you come from on those issues?
Well, like I said, I come from a left anarchist perspective. So ultimately, I'm an anti-state from the get-go. That's just a given. So as a rule, I mean, personally, I don't like to recognize the state in these affairs. I think they got no business in being in these affairs. As a satirical candidate, I'm sure I'd have something stupid or funny to say about it. And as a individual seeking the Libertarian Party platform, I have pretty much agreed to accept the tenets of the Libertarian Party platform itself as my own and try not to contradict them. So I understand that the Libertarian Party platform explicitly states that no foreign intervention is necessary, that the need for military should be minimally put up in order for self-defense purposes. I believe it generally states foreign entanglements for none, free ponies for all, or something along those lines. I mean, these are the platform planks of the Libertarian Party are generally the things that are just so agreeable that I've been able to dovetail with them very easily. And of course, that anti-war, anti-foreign interventionist streak is definitely one of the things that I promote and agree with.
And yet the duopoly, as it stands, gives and uses the same type of rhetoric, yet every opportunity they have to violate those premises, they do. Why would you think that at this point in history, given the atrocities that we've seen politically and morally from our government, why do we continue to accept their rhetoric and not hold them accountable for their actions?
I'm not sure the we you're referring to. We the royal we, the general public.
You and I certainly don't.
Yes, no.
But the royal we.
Back when I was a young activist, when I was out at the test site, and people would ask me about what I was doing there, and I was just trying to make people aware of the Nuremberg principles and the fact that a government is responsible and just following orders is not an excuse for atrocities, and these weapons are just atrocities waiting to happen. And I would say that, well, we're trying to inform the people, and once they know what's up, then they will have to act, because they will have no choice, because then they'll be complicit if they don't. And now that I'm much older, I don't think I'm more cynical about it, but I just don't think that's, I don't know, is that true? I mean, if people are informed, which I think most aren't, but even if they do know, what can they do? It's a very trying and frustrating question. I mean, we can laugh at them fuckers.
Absolutely. How can folks find out more about the Vermin Supreme campaign?
You can check out my campaign website, https://verminsupreme2020.com. That has a lot of the position papers and the LP platforms in on there, and it also has the donation page, and it has the event page. You can go to if you're an old person on Facebook, you can go to Vermin Supreme for President, the blue check mark. You can go to Vermin Supreme, my homepage, which is a little more political. There's Vermin Supreme's dank meme stash. There's Vermin Supreme for President, 10 million strong. On the Twitter, there is at Vermin Supreme, which is my Twitter. There's also at For Vermin, which is the Libertarians for Vermin Supreme. There's the Free Pony Express. On Instagram, there's Vermin Supreme for President. On the Discord, I think there's one. On the Reddit, there's Vermin Supreme 2020. So yeah, I think I'm represented all over the damn place. I do house parties up in New Hampshire. Reach out to me. I'm a college speaking guy. If you know any college kids, send them my way. I like to take some of that sweet student debt money and do that with it. And yeah, I'm running for the Libertarian nomination. So reach out at info@verminsupreme2020.com if you have any questions. Be happy to answer them. If you have any media requests, media at verminsupreme2020.com. On and on and on. On and on and on. And of course, my book, I'd be negligent if I did not plug my book, I, Pony, Blueprint for a New America. It's a story about the future, long after Vermin Supreme presidency, after everybody has their pony, after zombie power fuels the nation, after secret dental police have checkpoints every couple hundred yards. It's a story about, it's a warning from the people of the future to you, the people of the present, their past, that Vermin Supreme is a madman and must be stopped. I'm Vermin Supreme. Together, we will ride our ponies into a zombie-powered future. Thank you for listening. Take care.
God bless, Len. I'll close off by saying we are the coalition. As always, loud and proud, Outrage Point. We're hoping to get Vermin in the studio in the coming weeks. And perhaps an opportunity to meet the student body population of, well, the college kids that roam freely across the province. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on the Mighty Mighty Twitter, Coalition_radio, and the mothership, of course, coalitionradio.us. Pat Ford signing out. Thanks for listening either tonight or in the near future. God bless everyone.